let's talk about Starship. You just had a really, what appeared to be a phenomenal launch. How close is it to, being predictable and ready to go in a commercial setting?
I think we'll recover the ship next year. We've got one more launch of the Starlink version 2 stack. There's only one booster and ship left that's in the version 2 design. And then thereafter, it's version 3, which is a gigantic upgrade because that's got Raptor 3, and pretty much everything changes on the rocket with version 3. So version 3, might have some initial teething pains because it's such a radical redesign, but it's capable of over 100 tons to orbit, fully reusable. And I think unless we have some very major setbacks, SpaceX will demonstrate full reusability next year, catching both the booster and the ship, and being able to deliver over 100 tons to a useful orbit.
What does the best rocket in the world do now in terms of tonnage to space?
Well, in terms of sort of commercial rockets, there's Falcon Heavy, which will do with side booster reuse, will do about 40 tons.
So this is 5 times bigger, yeah.
Well, 2.5 times bigger, but Starship would be full reusability.
Got it. Okay.
Hey,
so everything comes back.
Yeah.
Elon, after the explosion that happened with the failed launch, there was a lot of.
Which one?
Sorry.
which failed?
Oh, the more recent one. The more recent with the Starship.
The big boom.
Yeah, and
the big boom on the base.
And there was there was a lot of proclamations that there's going to be environmental and FAA and all these other sorts. The recovery back to the launch pad again was incredibly fast. How did you get back so fast? Not just technically and work-wise, but just like regulatory clearance-wise, because they said there were going to be all these questions and reviews and so on. How did you guys manage that?
Well, there were a lot of questions and reviews. We got through them all. And credit to the SpaceX team, they worked incredibly hard, and they got the next ship and booster tested and on the pad and flown. And huge credit to the SpaceX team. Very proud of them for doing such a great job recovering. Creating a fully reusable orbital rocket is one of the hardest engineering problems ever. It's certainly, a candidate for most difficult engineering project ever. It's on the podium at least. So that's been the goal of SpaceX from the beginning, from 2002, and here we are 23 years later. So it's a long journey, and with a super talent, like by far I think the most talented group of rocket engineers that's ever been assembled. And we're finally, next year, I think we'll be able to achieve full reusability.
Elon, what are the big technical blockers that you're focused on there between now and that full reusability? Are there some showstoppers where you're just kind of literally just obsessing over trying to figure out still, or is it more about getting through a sort of a laundry list of your learnings and just integrating it into the next launch?
Well, for full reusability of the ship, there's still a lot of work that remains on the heat shield. So no one's ever made a fully reusable orbital heat shield. Like the shuttle heat shield had to go through 9 months of repair after every flight.
Right.
So no one has ever made a fully reusable orbital heat shield.
And is that a material science problem, or is that an engineering problem, or both?
It's a material science engineering problem. But we really are looking at the fundamental physics here. Again, physics first principles, and trying to figure out how do we make something that is it can withstand the heat, is very light, doesn't transmit the heat to the primary primary structure, and
but then whose integrity is
all the
intact.
tiles stay on and they don't crack.
Yeah.
And then as you ascend, if you hit some rain, the tiles don't dissolve in rain. There's a lot of different issues. And then you really need to know that these tiles are working. You can't go through this laborious inspection. So it really needs to be these tens of thousands of tiles all work and don't need to be refurbished or checked one by one. That was the case with the shuttle.
I feel like the moon base, or just going to the moon for real this time, would be a big step in the right direction. You still have the moon planned? What's the status of that? Is that still on the agenda?
Yeah, I think we want to try to reach new heights as a civilization.
Yeah.
So I think it's fine to go to the moon, but we should go to the moon in order to establish a lunar base, like a lunar research base.
Yeah.
I mean, there are parts of the moon that are perhaps older than parts of Earth, and we might understand more about the nature of the universe if we had a science base on the moon.
Yeah.
That would be very cool. And then we obviously want to go beyond the moon to Mars, and build a self-sustaining city on Mars. I do think that that there is a fork in the road of human destiny where if we can establish a self-sustaining city on Mars, with the key test being if the resupply ships from Earth stop coming for any reason, does Mars continue to prosper or does it die out? At the point at which Mars is able to prosper and grow on its own, the probable lifespan of consciousness is dramatically greater because we are no longer dependent on everything going right on Earth. There's always some possibility of self-annihilation on Earth with the World War III, or a super virus, or a meteor like that destroyed the dinosaurs. We know from the fossil record that there've been many mass extinction events. So the question that I sort of am always wondering about is: will the civilizational arc continue to ascend such that we can make Mars self-sustaining before the civilizational arc descends? Because the window of opportunity to make life multiplanetary exists now for the first time in the 4.5 billion year history of Earth.
Yeah. Elon, let's assume that we get there and you're there. You'd be the elder statesman. You'd have the moral authority of Mars. How do you run Mars?
There's this point that I think I want to just emphasize again that it's more important than the form of governance on Mars or who's there in the early days. What really matters is that Mars is self-sustaining, that we are truly a multi-planet species, and such that we've achieved planetary redundancy. So that if something, and obviously we should do everything possible to make sure life on Earth is great, but there's always some risk of an annihilation event on Earth.
Yeah.
Like I said, self-annihilation or some natural disaster. And so the probable lifespan of consciousness increases dramatically as soon as we are a multi-planet species, with the key test being, can Mars survive if the resupply ships stop coming? So getting, like, the first missions to Mars are not that important. What matters is, can you get sufficient tonnage to Mars such that Mars can prosper on its own? And that means it has to have all of the ingredients of civilization. It's not just that you need to build, for example, a chip factory on Mars or chip fab on Mars, but you need the ability to build chip fabs.
Do you have a sense of the time scale? Like, let's assume Starship is at a state starting in 2026, then there's going to be a bunch of testing, obviously. There's going to be a bunch of early testing. We only have certain launch windows, so there's a bunch of time constraints. Is this a 50-year thing in your mind? Is it a 150-year thing? Is it something that is for our generation, or is it our children's generation? Where do you see that point if it's optimally possible? You know, if things go and break our way.
I think it can be done in 30 years.
Wow.
So if provided there's an exponential increase in the tonnage to Mars with each successive Mars transfer window, which is every 2 years. So every 2 years the planets align and you can transfer to Mars. I think in roughly 15, but maybe as few as 10, but 10 to 15-ish Mars transfer windows, if you're seeing exponential increases in the tonnage to Mars with each Mars transfer window, then it should be possible to make Mars self-sustaining in about, call it roughly 25 years.
Amazing.
That's incredible.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Elon Musk.